Welcome, far corners of the internet, to D4&After. My name is Ross. You have not seen me on any of the D4 things, most likely, except for the promo that just went out, because I'm behind the scenes until now. They brought me out from the dungeon, and here I am. I am not Dustin or Devan, but I am joined by them this evening, as well as the lovely Lauren Urban, to discuss her year on the show as Orkira. And yeah, there's a lot there, Lauren.
I mean, it's only a year, right?
It's only a year.
Only an entire year of our lives.
Every week.
Yeah, you know.
Not much happened.
Every week.
For 4 hours.
No. So we'll be done with this in like what? 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Easily.
Totally. Easy.
Barely remember what happened.
Yeah.
Same. Oh, wait, what? No. Sorry. I mean, yeah, I know exactly what happened.
I know everything that happened in that 5 minutes that I was on the air. There was a lot. There was a lot, but I was super happy to be a part of it. And it's sad that it's over, but it was awesome. So there you go. That's the whole year in a nutshell. It was sad, but awesome.
All right, and that's the show, guys. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. No, not at all. But thank you for joining us for this very first and premiere episode of D4&After. A couple of housekeeping notes before we really dive in to the show. This show is pre-recorded today, and will, generally speaking, most likely always be. That being said, if you have questions that you want to ask the cast, please submit them by Wednesday on the D4 Discord in the D4&After channel. We will try to get to as many as we can, but we don't promise that we'll get to any or all of them. So we will do our best, though. This show in particular will be airing right now as you're watching it this Friday. And we will replay the VOD one more time next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. After that, D4&After will air weekly on Friday at 9 p.m. And afterwards, the VOD will be available for Patreon members, for D4 Patreon members. So check out that Patreon, folks. I believe that is all the housekeeping notes that I have for this one. So let's dive in to the year.
Oh, that was kind of nice. I just got a nice crack in my neck from doing that. That was good. I was doing that for fun, but now I feel better. Oh,
maybe you want to crack mine. There you go. We're good.
Oh,
D4&After, come for questions and leave for physical therapy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe emotional therapy here shortly. So.
I mean,
if I need to go grab a crying towel, I will. But I didn't think I needed one for today. But we'll see.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Dustin and Devan are going to be helping lead the charge with this one as well. And so who knows what they have in store? I know what I have in store, but I have no idea what they have in store. So
I'm actually excited to take a back seat or maybe a side seat. I don't know what this is. And let you kind of take the reins with the questions. We're kind of here to answer anything that might have come up from our side along the year, and also here to say thank you so much, Lauren, for the year and
absolutely,
doing this.
And I mean, from the very beginning, coming in and 3 years ago, I think it was
3 years. 3 years ago.
Was it 3? Oh, jeez.
I think it was like episode 20 in the 20s.
In the 20s, yeah. It was
late 20s.
Late 20s. We came in, and it's just been an incredible journey. It's been so wonderful, and it is really the greatest boon and the best thing that happened during having to go remote. Is we got to have you at our table, virtual table.
Listen, before this turns into a love fest here, I will just preface this by saying it was just as important to me, and I've talked about this a little bit, but Orkira at the time was on Silver and Steel, and that show was ending. And what nobody knew at the time, except for me, was my tenure at D&D Beyond was ending. And I was in a little bit of a panic because I was suddenly losing the opportunity to play this character at all. And for both personal and professional reasons, it was like, I need to be somewhere. I need to do something. And when the two of you said, yeah, come on over to D4 and we'll have you on for as long as we're heads in boxes, it literally was the best thing that happened last year. It saved my sanity in ways I cannot even begin to describe. And knowing at the beginning of the year, even though I didn't join the cast right at the beginning, it took about a month before I joined officially. But just knowing that was going to happen and I was going to have a home for her. And even though at the time we were hopeful because of everything going on, there's going to be a couple months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, listen, I will take whatever I can to have a chance to play with people that I love and respect on a weekly basis in a show that I enjoy. I would have been happy with 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes, and like the silver lining of the dark cloud of y'all being remote for an entire year was that I got to continue to play. So as much as it was a bittersweet thing for me to have to leave, it was 100% like this is what we were hoping was going to happen. So thank you.
And I know we're going to get into it in the questions and everything like that, but I do want to say I'm really glad that we had you longer because even though we didn't have I don't want to say not the ability, but I didn't feel like it was our right to tell or have a part in telling Orkira's story, but Orkira's story for D4 was helping the BFGs, and along the way I feel like there was a full arc because we touched on everybody and Orkira was there for everybody's moment. And if you go back and watch episode 130, you can see all of that accumulate into the fantastic live show that we had together
with you at the table.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. That was super cool.
So I feel like we got to actually tell a part of Orkira's life instead of you just being an extended guest.
Yep.
Absolutely. Really, yeah. And when in that last episode, when she was trying to explain how much it had meant to her because of all of the simple things she got a chance to do. You know, these were experiences that she had never had before. And so I think I felt bad that you didn't feel like you could dive into her story, but you did in a way that she had never been able to touch on before, in ways that were really important to her, that were that changed the way that she thought about what she does for her life, which is to help other people be heroes. But to be that person who got to experience the things that normal people get to do because of heroes she's never had any of that. And it was really, really important. And I know a lot of people have asked, well, how has her experience on D4 affected her going forward? And it's a lot of just that grounding of why does she do what she does? She's weird.
That's awesome.
She's super weird and has a really weird life. And every once in a while, like, she just doesn't understand that normal people don't understand what planar travel is and toilets. That, like, those are weird things to everybody. Like, at one point, I think she dropped trains on the BFGs and everyone's like, a what?
Yeah.
A train? I don't understand.
Cannot compute.
What are we training for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we're obviously very excited to talk about this year, so let's throw it to Ross and see what he's got for us.
Yeah, and just going off of what you just brought up, Lauren, those little in-between moments, not everything, fortunately, in the journey with the BFGs was hard. You had some very human moments, going shopping in Waterdeep, partying with your friends after you had slain a red dragon and walked away with 500,000 gold. Well, the city of Waterdeep walked away with 500,000 gold, but still, great accomplishment. A moment that I think I would almost say wouldn't have happened at the beginning of Orkira's time with the BFGs, but by the time it did, made sense for her pranking Harold in that moment with the itchy hat, which led to the introduction of, and I don't know actually the age of the copper dragon. Dustin, Devan, if you want to maybe peek the curtain back, it was an adult, was it an ancient, or will the audience just never know?
We'll let it be known.
Yeah, it was ancient.
It was ancient.
Yep.
All right, and introducing them to an ancient copper dragon, like there are some fun moments that you've had with the BFGs. Those little in between moments that gave Orkira that sense of, hey, this is what real life is like. This is what heroes are doing. The heroes do things that allow for these moments for people. How did that affect Orkira?
It's really interesting that it's not just that it affected her, but it gave her these moments of joy that previously all of her joyful moments were, I'm with my friends and there's nothing happening. Like that kind of relief of we get a chance to just breathe. We get a chance to just relax.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm dead and I'm going to go hang out on the plane of fire. So like her opportunities for stuff that had nothing to do with saving the world, saving the universe, saving her friends, saving herself was so rare. And then to have more than just recovery time in between all of that it was interesting because there were times in where I didn't know what to have her do because she didn't know what to do with herself. Like we had those first couple of, I think it was like a 10-day of downtime in Waterdeep. And there was a lot of the BFGs prepping for, we're going to go, we're going to do this and that. And Orkira was like, I got all my stuff in my bag. I'm ready to go. What now? And it was very easy to fall back on, well, I'm just going to help everybody else because that's what she does. But then to have the moment of, oh, we're going to go shopping. I get to go shopping. That's a thing. We're going to go try a whole bunch of food carts. We're going to have a party. Like things that are frivolous, things that are fun were really, really cool. And then, yeah, she had more serious things. It's interesting that you bring up the dragon because it's not just the pranking of Harold, because I don't think she ever would have done that except for the fact that she knew that was a dragon, or at least she had like the super strong inclination, and she does not like dragons, does not like them at all. Doesn't matter if they're good or bad or indifferent, not a fan. And so that entire series of interactions with that dragon of like, I need to put aside my personal history with dragons and what I've been taught about them because I know this is the right thing to do for the group, and I know this is like her basically psychoanalyzing herself and going, my own feelings are getting in the way of what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm the person who's got to go do this. That was a really nice growth moment for her because she's been holding on to that I'm not a fan of dragons for so long. And I think that was actually the first time she's had an interaction with one that wasn't antagonistic, that wasn't oh, yeah, well, all dragons are assholes, so here we are. Yeah, things like that. Those growth moments that never could have happened if we hadn't had the time to let them percolate, I guess. And it wasn't, I need to run to the next thing that's happening.
There's so much that happened.
I was going to say, I would counter argue and say that he kind of was an asshole, just in a fun jester way.
Yeah.
He was messing around with many people in many different towns and making them question reality because he found it fun.
Yeah.
And now we have the sheep.
Yeah, now there's sheep art.
There's sheep.
Yeah.
And now there are sheep. Yep. Yeah, and now there's the plane of sheep, which has been brought into existence because I think it was it Seisha that was just like, no, you've spoken that into existence and now it exists. Like, yes, yes, that's how demiplanes work.
I mean, we haven't even introduced the blood sheep of the apocalypse yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the idea of a dragon, like she intellectually knew up until that point that there were dragons, just like any other group of people who are good and bad. But the fact that everyone that she had encountered had been something to kill, or be killed by. And then that was, yeah, all right, they're playing pranks and things, but there's not a maliciousness there. That was interesting. And then to put aside her fear and be like, I'm doing this for the good of the group. Let's go. That was an interesting. And then the how do I prank someone when neither I nor Orkira are good at that kind of thing. Which is why she went really simple, super simple.
Very simple, very successful too, I might add. So
I played on the facts that, I say it pretty often, Orkira doesn't incite her friends, but they don't incite her very often either. And every once in a while, that's to her benefit. Because she was prepared. She had cast the spell so that she could like be more deceptive, and was prepared to like deceive Harold, the person who is the great deceiver. And he was just like, yeah, sure, here we go, hat.
Yeah.
Wait, what? It was that easy? Well,
I mean, Harold trusts you implicitly.
There you go.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 years in a bag.
6 years in a bag.
And that might have been the first time that she had ever lied to him.
Possibly, yeah.
I would
guess
believe
it a
that.
lie.
Yeah, at least a direct lie. There might be omission, but
Yep.
She does leave stuff out a lot, but that's never out of malice or out of it's always I'm leaving this out because it's just super complicated. You know what you need to know. You don't need to know the specifics.
Yeah.
Because it's usually something like, oh yeah, the 1,000 years I spent in a demi-plane trying to figure out how to fix a time machine to send us back in time. Like, how do you explain that? You don't. You just say, yeah, I know what a time machine is. Why are you afraid of snow? I had some bad experiences.
Yeah.
You don't go into the whole simulacrum thing because that's just more details you need to know.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes those lies of omissions are necessary.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the party in general, the BFGs, do quite often, and that I think I would say you have to tell me, like, did their lack of trust, those secret keeping, that lies of omission, those purposeful lies, how did that affect Orkira over time with the BFGs from the start when she first arrived? Your first visit, you meet them. It's a weird group. You go back, you come back. And then over the course of your time and then traveling all the way up to the Star Mount, seeing that progress, like what was Orkira's internal journey like through those moments?
She was really shocked, I think, at how little, and this is what she was seeing at least and hearing, and I know she didn't know half of what was going on, but especially when it got to Daggerford and it kind of boiled over there, that whole idea of like, I'm not going to tell somebody something that is super important. And she saw like little bits of it in Waterdeep before we left, even innocuous things like when Seisha asked the stone a question and it hurt real bad. And then she was like, don't tell anybody that this happened. And she kind of went with it because at that point she didn't really understand how bad things could get with the stone, or that, that there was going to be so much held back. And then like time and time again, I think she had such a big amount of respect for everybody, and then a love for especially Harold, but then for all of them in a way. And then that grew in where her love for them grew throughout the journey, but her frustration also grew because she saw those secrets being held onto. And I think Daggerford is really where it really boiled over, because a lot of it was to her overt. She saw people going and doing things, sneaking away, or saying, hey, I'm going to go do a thing and I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you to, I want you to stay. I want you to stay out of this. And in some of those cases, like Lauren knows that that was for the best, but Orkira just saw it as, I want to be able to help. We want to be able to help, and you're just hurting yourself. And I think the moment that she really realized how different this group is from the other groups that she's hung out with was when she finally got a chance to enter the orphanage for the first time. And it was like days and days of, don't go into the orphanage, Voss is going to take care of it. Don't go into the orphanage, Harold's already gone. Don't go in. Like, everyone seemed to be going, and then she'd either find out later or they'd say, don't go because I'm going to take care of it. And she kept saying, well, we should just all go. We should just, because her feeling on a lot of those subjects is, I'm not the smart one. I'm not the person who's going to figure out what's going on, but maybe I'll see something. Someone else will say something. Someone else will sense something, and we'll figure it out together. That's why we're more effective as a group. And the instant she walked into the orphanage and knew it was unhallowed ground, and that idea, and it's a little egotistical of her, but like that idea of, if I had done this 3 days ago, all the shit that had happened wouldn't have happened, which is not probably not true, but like in her mind it is. I could have told you this is unhallowed ground. We would have fixed this, and like vampires would have been flying out of the woodwork, and we would have known what was going on. And like,
so many red flags would have pinged at that moment,
Right. I mean, and like, it's, and I will say to everyone's defense, like, she was fairly new to everybody else. There's no reason, especially for Voss, to trust her. Doesn't matter how many years of stories Harold has in a bag. There's this weird creature who's already freaked him out because she's a cleric of a god that is about fire, and he's not a fire person at all. So like, they all have reason to not even tell each other stuff, but especially not her. But yeah, that was a weird journey because she's used to kind of the opposite. She's used to people telling her in her party everything, just not necessarily giving her time to do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite problem. We're going to go run into danger now. There's danger up ahead. Wait, what? And then you're there. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Devin, you're going to say something.
Oh, I was just commenting on the red flags, and I was like, I thought we tried to put as many as possible,
without just putting the spoon in the mouth.
But 100%, if you would have walked in earlier, I can't say what would have happened because we don't know that timeline. But I can say it would have sped up.
Yeah,
because you would have alerted certain people that, oh, you're actually a threat, instead of them trying to manipulate you out of town without, overtly letting you know that they're evil.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah. It makes me wonder that interaction that Voss had with Mother that first time, how different that would have been if we had all walked into the orphanage together at some point. Either Seisha or I had been like, what is this? What is going on? But, what happens. And those are also some of those moments that, like, as a player, you're constantly trying to balance the needs of the party, the needs of your character, and the needs of other characters. Because, like, Lauren knew this was a big storyline point for Voss and didn't want to step all over his story. And so until Orkira had actionable intelligence to have a reason to want to butt in on his life, that was more than just, this is your backstory, it was important for her to be a little more passive, because Lauren wanted him to have a chance to go through some stuff, and we didn't know what was going on. So her frustration was palpable.
And that's definitely a hard line to follow as a player, and even as a DM, as anyone, just trying to find that, hey, this is a collaborative story. We're better together. We're better telling this together, not only as people, but then the characters. And how do I, And so there's a lot going on there, for sure. And I think,
I was going to say what I love about playing on D4, which I don't get a chance to do very often because it's a 4-hour show and because our pacing is much more deliberate. there are those wonderful, you can let characters have longer moments. You can let them go off and do stuff. You can let 2 or 3 characters have conversations with each other, and no one feels like they're hogging the spotlight, because when you got a 4-hour show, even 20 minutes is not a majority of the time. Whereas if you've got a 2-hour show, 20 to 30 minutes is suddenly, now that's a quarter of the show gone. And if it's a fast moving show, it can feel like you don't want to take that time for yourself because you're hogging the spotlight way too much. But we had that chance. So, I could sit back and put myself on mute and let a 30-minute conversation go by that was awesome and needed to happen. It was fascinating to watch. And, and so that's why Lauren enjoyed a lot more of that than Orkira did.
Yeah. And speaking of letting 30-minute conversations go by, you yourself could participate in some of those 30-minute conversations. So that leads me to another question.
Look at that smooth segue.
Smooth segue. I'm just leaning forward on that.
You're leaning in.
Just leaning in.
You were the mall cop of D4&After.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
You had a lot of opportunities for those small talk moments throughout the course of your year with D4. What are some of your favorite moments in those little small talk moments? And just as a quick example that comes to mind for me recently was your, I would say, pseudo bonding moment with Boss on the way up to the Star Mounts. So this is during your travels. I want to say maybe after Daggerford, but before. I'm going to mispronounce that town.
Ullavin.
Yes.
Ullavin. Yeah.
Ullavin. But before Ullavin, I want to say is when that moment happened. But that's just an example. Moments like that. What are some of your favorite moments with Orkira for those?
Oh, jeez. So many come to mind. There was early on one of the watches that Orkira took with Seisha. It was before they hit Daggerford, where Seisha it was a really good conversation, and they talked about a bunch of different stuff going on with both of them. And I remember, and I'll say it now because it kind of came up in the final episode, there was a couple of things that Dustin and Devan asked. What is Orkira's goals? What's she trying to do? And one of the main things I said was she knows she has to find out who the other Cleric of the Phoenix is, that there's this other one out there. She doesn't want to do it, though, because every time that she's done it in the past, she's found a horrible person that she's had to kill. And she's just come off of that. So even though she knows this is something that she should be doing, she's taking advantage of the fact that she's here with the BFGs to have an excuse to not. Because she could commune and ask questions. She now has a lore seeker of Agma who can ask the Stone of Golor questions. Like, there's all these reasons that she could gather all this information. And so, but she doesn't want to, because she thinks that's just going to lead down the path to finding a horrible, horrible person that she's going to have to kill again. And I remember we were having a watch, and Seisha almost totally got it out of her. And of like, what are you trying to do? Is there any questions, the stone, that you could ask about the stone? And she ended up kind of dodging it and letting Seisha know in a very roundabout way, hey, if you, in your travels, happen to hear anything about the Phoenix, would you let me know? But that specific conversation, like we talked a bit about some of the things that Seisha was looking for. There's actually a lot of really good ones with Seisha. Honestly, I'm surprised at how often the two of us ended up in those one-on-ones. I was expecting way more of Harold, actually, and we had some really good moments. But like Seisha had a bunch going on that I don't know why she gravitated towards Orikira to ask questions of and feel things out. But we had some really good, like when she was upset about Voss being and the suggestion of taking the stone away, and like, all right, how do we, it's one of those Voss is not wrong. He's just going about this the wrong way moments. So how do we redirect the questions to the stone so that it's this more actionable intelligence? How do we do this? Like the two of them had a couple of really good in-depth conversations. And now Seisha also did something that Orkira never thought she'd do before. And I don't know if Seisha, I know Goblin knows how important this is, but Seisha might have zero idea. There was one of those moments after Ulavin where, just as part of the role play, I talked about how there was a loose scale that needed to come off. And then Seisha asked for if she could have it. And Orkira knows very intimately all of the really awful things that can happen if someone owns a piece of you. And it was one of those moments of, I should say no, even though I trust Seisha, because this could go wrong. It already has gone wrong. People I trusted who had pieces of me ended up, things went bad. But it's more important. This is more important to Seisha than it is a fear for me. And so she gave it on over. And so Seisha now has this scale from Orkira that was another one of those growth moments of like, I need to get over this fear because this is important for her. There were a bunch of those little tiny moments in where I don't know if Orkira ever fully expressed how deeply afraid she was of things, but was pushing past it because she loved these people so much.
There are a ton of those moments, I feel like.
Orkira's bad at expressing her feelings.
Yeah. just a little
or
bit.
she's bad at explaining her feelings, unless it's, hey, I love you and you're awesome. But yeah, there was a bunch of those.
In some ways that's her, I feel like, and obviously this is from an outside perspective, but I feel like that's her being self-sacrificing in some ways, taking that burden on herself and being like, hey, I've got my burden to carry. I'm going to help these guys carry theirs, but they don't need to carry mine.
That's exactly
absolutely.
what I was going to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kira in a nutshell right there.
I mean, and especially this year of her being with the BFGs, even though how she got there was very roundabout, it's I got sent here to help, and I'm not here to get help. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I know that one of the things with Orkira being a cleric, healing is something that comes naturally. And I would venture to say that the service and the help, that's part of Orkira's identity on some level.
Oh, for sure.
How did that desire to serve and even self-sacrifice help and hinder Orkira in her journey with the BFGs?
I don't know if the helping, it's complicated. Like, the thing I think that would have been the most interesting moment would have been if, God, I don't even know if I want to say it. There were a couple things that almost happened in where Orkira's how much she loves her friends would have been really, really tested. Vinley came very close a couple times with things that she almost did. Orkira did a lot of the Phoenix is going to yell at me for this later, but I'm going to turn a blind eye kind of stuff. Yeah. There were a couple of moments in where I know Rhea was considering doing something and then like backed away from it for Vinley. And I was just like, okay, good. Okay, good. Yeah. I think the fact that she had no witherlings for a while and they weren't humanoids helped a bit as her undead thralls. Certainly the moment where she cast Turn Undead and killed Friend and destroyed Friend and then had the wherewithal to at least say I'm sorry afterwards. That was a growth moment. But yeah, Vinley with her undead came very close a couple times, but never to the point where she's like, okay, I've got to I've got to now confront my friends. The whole thing with the devil, that was a big moral quandary for her.
They're literally, your friends are literally having a literal deal with a literal devil.
Yeah.
And you're a holy cleric of the Phoenix.
Well, so the holy thing she doesn't see herself as holy. She doesn't see herself as, like, she actually will shy away. And this came up at one point. Someone tried to pay her a tithe for like ascending or something. And she felt weird about that because she's a cleric, but she doesn't proselytize. She's not like, there's a bunch of things that don't come along with that. And so her issues with the conversations with the devil were the same issues that I think anyone has. Oh, this is an evil creature who's in the end trying to probably trick us into stealing our souls. And so she doesn't have the same hard line, I will never with a fiend, but, you know, because she did go ahead and sign the contract. But for her, that moment was, I don't want anyone making choices or mistakes that are going to get that to save lives and lose souls. Like, to her, the soul is the most important part. Everything else can be lost or rebuilt. We can rebuild you. We can true resurrect you. But like, once your soul's gone, eaten, destroyed, taken by a demon or devil, there's nothing we can do. And so that whole situation was just, how can we make sure Vinley especially, but everybody, does not screw this up or make a mistake or accidentally or whatever. Because that she saw as like a consequence that no one can afford. She would rather kill people than have them lose their souls. And there was thoughts of like, okay, well, if I got to get into a fight, if there's going to be a battle, I'm okay with killing good people or killing my friends if it's going to save their souls. And that's a weird position to be in. And it never got that far, but like those were thoughts that were going through her head. Like, what's the right thing here? It's saving people's souls.
That is so interesting. I don't know that I myself as a listener and watcher would have put that together. Just how far Orkira would be willing to go to save a soul.
We fortunately didn't get that far. We didn't. Yeah. It didn't go down that road. The moment they came the closest was when we were in the fight, and the party was split, and Bozka got summoned, and Orkira spent time in the middle of a fight, even though there was all sorts of things going on, to spend her action to tell Vinley, don't come in here, because she was afraid if Vinley came on in that was going to endanger the pact that she had in her soul. And that was in that moment, even though Orkira was in mortal danger and her friends were in mortal danger, her friend was in soul danger. And fortunately, that's not how it worked out. But that was the first step down that path of like, oh, if it comes down to it, yeah. Fireballs are going to go off to prevent people's souls from going away. So.
And it could have gotten to that point, but another player pulled a Hail Mary move.
Yeah.
And went, I need to know that Pit Fiend's true name. And so the Pit Fiend turned heel and was like, nope, I will do whatever is necessary to make sure no one has that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was
such a good move. Such a good move.
Such a good move.
Yeah.
Such a good move. It saved a lot of things. With the following, with the start of the next episode. I mean, it completely changed the dynamic.
It turned. We're all gonna have to die in order to save people's souls, or some people may end up dying. To it actually makes more sense to sign a contract with the devil, like. That literally became, because the terms of that contract were so favorable to us and so easy for us to adhere to that, okay, it actually makes way more sense to sign this contract.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to like Seisha having a piece of Orkira. You guys had the biggest piece of Bozka, and so Bozka was like, I will do anything to get that back.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
D&D, folks, where you
Yeah.
sign literal contracts with literal devils to get out of contracts with literal contracts. With
Yeah.
literal
And it's also another one of those moments that, like, because it it was stuff I think we all had to think about, and we all had to ponder what would our character do and how would our character respond if it went down the bad path. Like, and so thinking about that in advance was, I'm pretty sure everybody thought about that, but because it didn't go that way, no, there wouldn't. That whole situation was so uncomfortable afterwards. I think the only thing we really want to talk about was like the direct consequences and make sure that there was a catharsis for us. And so it didn't make sense for the characters to go down the road of what if. So no, there wouldn't have been a reason for Orkira to really go into it deeply. She had that one moment with Vinley and where she gave over the stone and said, "Don't lose your soul."
Yeah.
That was it.
I feel like that moment with Vazka, all those moments leading up led up to that tension that you talked about earlier that kind of boiled over in Daggerford with Orkira and the party, where you're like, hey, guys, stop. Please stop. To the point where Orkira got angry, frustrated, and left, just walked away.
Yeah.
And Harold had to come find you, sit with you for a bit.
Can I admit something?
Yeah,
As one of the
totally,
few
absolutely.
That's one of the few regrets I have in the campaign is that I let Orkira do that.
Really?
I wish she had stayed because it was such a good conversation that happened that she didn't get to be a part of. But yeah, she I'm not going to say like, well, she took over and, this is what my character would do kind of thing. But like I was having that moment when we were having the argument trying to figure out, is she going to stay or is she going to go? And Lauren regretted afterwards that she left. Harold made Orkira regret leaving.
But I mean, that's life.
Yeah.
So
that's a real life growth moment for Orkira in that moment. I wish I hadn't have left that conversation.
Yeah.
And Harold made me feel that way.
He did. He immediately did. He knew exactly what to say, and she was just like, "Oh."
So on the flip side, while Daggerford kind of everything boiled over, there was another first for Orkira that you mentioned when it happened, and that there was a shared dream with everyone, and Orkira and everyone met deities from the Forgotten Realms. What was running through Orkira's brain in those moments? So there's a ton of huge tension coming off of this. So my question's twofold. What was running through Orkira's brain in that moment? And did that moment with those deities approving of what the party had done change Orkira's perspective at all, looking back on everything that had happened in Daggerford?
Ooh. For the first question, what was going through Orkira's mind was, this is cool. This is a really weird way for gods to talk to people. Okay, all right. Like I don't mean to be blasé about it.
Yeah.
Literally, that's another one of those moments in where like the rest of the group got to experience something she's used to, which is not just her deity, but like multiple deities. The fact that it happened in the way that it did, I think, is beautiful and wonderful and very very much in the way that things work, not just in the Forgotten Realms, but in D4. And so she was like pleased and happy that it was being recognized by these deities, and she has respect for those deities. But like the whole situation of us floating with the threads and, in a dream, and we're not sure if we're in a dream or not in a dream, it's just like this all seems like it's a lot of work. I don't. Oh, okay. This seems like way more work than it needs to be. I don't know. So yeah, she was happy about it, but very much like, okay, whatever. Ooh, boons. Ooh, boons. I think maybe afterwards was probably a moment of, I hope the Phoenix isn't going to be jealous of this. Nah, it'll be fine. The Phoenix wouldn't let me come if they were going to be jealous about it, right?
Right.
How it affected her afterwards, I don't think the experience of meeting those gods and getting blessed by them affected her directly. I think the immediate, she got to see her friends get blessed in a way that they never experienced before in undeniable praise. Like, these gods came down and said, you did good. You did so good that even though none of you pray to us, we're going to give you a gift. And everyone was so in awe of that. She was happy because that really was kind of an extra bit of catharsis after all of the tension of everything. After they'd had this talk, after they had kind of worked everything out and then went to sleep. And so getting to see them get that kind of praise, well, all of them, in Orkira's mind, they got to see that kind of praise. But that they all got that unequivocal thank you from beings that you cannot deny, that you cannot argue with. I think that was a relaxation point for her. It was okay, this is finally done and good, and we're going to be good again. So, and yeah, I think it just continued the whole, wow, the gods in this realm are really weird. They're very obtuse. I don't understand why. They don't just talk to you.
There's no direct communication. Like, there's no like verbal. Like, they don't just show up. Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Whatever.
I think after the time of troubles, they were like, you know what, being mortals, just I think we're going to be a little bit.
Yeah. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. That's the one of the other funniest. That's one of the times that the roles were just perfect. I think it was Ullivin we entered that had all of the shrines up on the hill and everybody was like bathing in the same water, and you described that they're baptizing each other and they're drinking out of the water and they're cleaning out, like all this stuff. And roll a religion check if you want to know if you know what these gods are. And I roll sometimes just for fun. Because I know she doesn't do well at religion, and I think she got a 0. And the idea of her just getting so distracted by, why are you bathing in the same place that you're drinking out of? What's going on? Like, that just continues her whole, like trying to explain to people that, are you sure, Lathander, are you sure you're not talking about Palor? Lathander and Palor sound really, really alike. Like, she's just so, she just has no idea.
That was Succumber, but yes.
Succumber. Thank you.
Yep.
Lots of good moments there.
Think that, like, you making the Palor comment, I think one of my absolute favorite quirks of Orkira that I don't know if a lot of people have caught on, but Orkira breaks the fourth wall.
All the time.
And I love
all the time.
So
all
much.
The time.
Because it's not overt. It's very subtle.
It's very subtle, and it is just so. Oh, it's just every time it happens, I'm just like.
But that kind of comes hand in hand with being a multiverse planeswalker. All the different systems and settings that live within the world of D&D. Orkira's been there.
Yeah.
And for Orkira, Palor is true, not Lathander.
Yep.
So making those references makes
absolutely.
sense.
100%.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to drop those in ways that that are both referential for her, but then also that kind of weird referential thing that's going on. So you pray to a god for a couple of years, and you tend to like them. And then you get really confused when people call them Lathander.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
Huh?
D&D is weird, and so is Orkira.
D&D is so weird.
Yeah.
But it's so good. So you mentioned, and I'm going back a little bit earlier, that one of the party members that Orkira struggled with the most was Vinley, being I think, obvious reasons. Consistently, I would consistently uncomfortable with everything going on there. How did Orkira approach that relationship with Vinley, and did she ever overcome that uncomfortableness around or with Vinley and what Vinley was pursuing?
Did she ever overcome her uncomfortableness with Vinley? Absolutely. Relatively quickly. As soon as they came to kind of an understanding of, don't lie to me about the undead, don't try to hide it, tell me about it, especially so that I don't accidentally get surprised and go poof. And then you don't have your undead anymore. And especially with some of the stuff that they had gone through and like helping bring her back and her now being a cleric of Jergal, like that, am I comfortable with you as a person? Do I think you are a good person and you are my friend? Absolutely. She got past that pretty quick. And especially with the, let's just keep the undead at a distance, just warn me when they're around. And so I think for a while, how she got over what Vinley does was kind of the same way that she dealt with Leaf, which is, I'm just going to ignore that they're there. If I don't acknowledge them or I don't deal with them, then I don't have to deal with them, right? Like, poor Leaf.
Yeah, poor Leaf.
And as far as what Vinley wants to become, I don't know if Orkira knows, because the few questions that, like, Vinley asked about Baelnorn, but I don't remember if either Orkira wasn't around or the way it was asked didn't have direct, this is what Vinley wants to do. It was, I think she asked it, but it was like, I just want to know more about Baelnorn. And Orkira has experienced Baelnorn before, so she knows what the difference between those two are. Yeah, I don't know if she knows how, I don't even know if she knows that Vinley eats souls. Like, I don't know how much of that she really understands, which is probably helpful. Because there's been a couple times where Vinley has killed a sentient creature and been like, and I take their souls. But I don't know how much of that Orkira really understands. So, yeah, what also helped with the undead, like I said, is in most cases, Vinley was only using bodies of either creatures that we had killed who were ostensibly bad people, or of monstrous creatures like the gnolls. And so, because Orkira's hatred of undead stems from the whole idea of, this is one way in where you can keep me from doing what I do. Well, I wasn't going to be bringing these witherlings back to life. I wasn't going to be raising them from the dead. The Phoenix would prefer that they burn, but all right, okay. Yeah, I think stuff, unlike some of the other secrets that the BFGs kept from Orkira, that was probably a good one to keep from her. Because I think if Orkira knew everything Lauren knew, there would be a lot more hard conversations that would have happened.
Especially given what you mentioned earlier about the importance of the soul to Orkira. So.
Yep. Yeah.
I will make the distinction that in D4 and not explicitly stated in Forgotten Realms, but kind of hinted towards in the lore, there is Mystra's magic and there's Shar's magic. And for us, because Vinley is devout also of Mystra first, learned the weave, and so therefore uses the weave to animate dead instead of using Shar magic, which is the shadow weave, in the manipulation of a soul to animate dead. I can't argue about the soul eating, though.
Yeah.
Which is why it's good that Orkira doesn't know. And that's also why Orkira's problem with undead is not the undead themselves. It is that this is a blocker to things that she can do. Yeah. Which is a little selfish, but just in general of like the idea of healing and resurrection, you can't do that with undead. And by doing that, you like she's literally encountered, oh, we have turned this corpse into an undead to prevent you from being able to bring this person back to life.
It's the elimination of the freedom of choice.
Exactly. Yep. So even though you're not, because she does get that idea of I'm not touching the soul. Every time that she does, when she talks to the body, when she does, I've just lost the name of the spell. Speak with dead. She knows I'm not speaking to the soul. I'm speaking to the body. And while she wouldn't mind if the soul was involved, because you could probably get more answers, that is an important line, an important distinction. What I'm doing is body only. I am not forcing the soul to do anything. She's had to have that conversation with Alindra way back in the day, because Alindra was afraid that Speak with Dead was doing stuff with souls. So yeah, once again, it's that line of, what gets in the way of the soul and what doesn't, and yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes what gets in the way of the soul is a nice fireball or blade to the chest. And Orkira had a bunch of moments where I would argue the BFGs were a little, before Orkira joined anyway, BFGs were a little underhealed, probably would be a good term to use.
I don't know. They were still alive by the time I got there, so they had to be doing pretty well.
Well is a relative term in the healing space. There are a lot of, just from a mechanics combat scenario and counter scenarios that you had with the BFGs. What are some of your most memorable moments as Orkira with the party?
Oh geez, there were a lot.
It's hard to pick.
Okay, so I will say, and this is so selfish. We got into that fight when we were on the road to Daggerford, and we got ambushed in the middle of the night, and a whole bunch of people died.
Yep.
And that she had resurrected people before, and I had used the subclass, the Phoenix subclass, to do that before. In fact, we had just gone through raising from the dead, doing an actual raised dead. But that was the first time that we really put to the test, like, I'm going to revivify a bunch of people and get super duper negative. And the conversation I ended up having with Voss the next day kind of tied into that as well. Like that, when I wrote the subclass, I very intentionally did not put a cap on how often you could do this, how negative you could go, because I figured that's 100% a DM call. Like at one point, are you unable to, unwilling to, whatever. And then to have Voss very honestly ask, at what point are you going to martyr yourself? And Orkira having to grapple with that. I don't want to, and I know I can't save everybody, but in that moment I could save everybody, and so I had to. But knowing that there could have been a time later on, I'm going to come across a battlefield, and I can't save the 300 people on the battlefield. Yep. I'm going to come across it almost happened when we got into Daggerford, and there was the fight that broke out at the guy who was going to get hanged, and then everything appeared, and that was another fight that could have gone really bad really quickly, and a bunch of people could have died very fast, and she was still in the negatives from that. And Lauren was like, if people start dying, especially because of what's going on with these Far Realms creatures, she's going to start revivifying, and I wonder at what point things are gonna, what that deep end is, because this will be another one of those moments in where she'll think, well, I'll just save one more. Well, I'll just save one more. Well, I'll just save one more. But yeah, that fight was, that was the first real test of being able to do that. And it felt good. And I really appreciated it.
It never got to the point, but I think we were under the agreement that at -10, that's when more detriments would come in, or we'd have to figure out what was going on, because -10's a lot, and you were already at -6 at one point. So
yep.
But
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, I would have. I think if we hadn't immediately gotten a long rest, so she kind of went to a -5 immediately. Like she was at a -6 for basically the next 5 minutes she was awake, and then went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if that happened earlier in the day, or if she's going to be at a -6 for a while, I think that would have sparked the conversation of like, okay, what if things go worse from here, or if that fight in Daggerford, because by the time we got to Daggerford, she was only at a -3, and all it would have taken is one only. Well, when you're on a -6 for stuff, -3 is way better.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there were a couple of those moments that it would have sparked that conversation. There were, if I had to revivify anyone in that fight, there would immediately have been a message to the two of you of like, okay, I'm at a -6 now. What's going to happen? This isn't going to change what Orkira does or tries to do.
Yeah.
But what do you need me to do in response? Because I was prepared for like all sorts of bad things to happen. So
Yeah.
but
And
like that's the price you pay for not having to have the diamonds on hand.
Yeah, and the fact that Orkira is even willing to again go to such lengths for, I mean, I want to say that during that ambush that night, it was all caravan people you revivified, correct?
Not
like
a
it wasn't
single
even
party member.
Not a single party member went down during that fight.
But she does that didn't make a difference to her. I think she would
Totally.
have gone to greater lengths if it had been her friends, but these were people that were under her protection.
Yeah.
That's all that mattered.
I mean,
Yep.
that entire encounter, like, Orkira was MVP because the turn undead pushing the vampire spawn away to be able to not be overrun. There could have been a lot more deaths in that fight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There have been a couple of times along the journey that we build encounters, and sometimes we're like, this is going to be really tough, and you guys just ace it, blow through it. And then there are times where like, this is going to be either not easy, but this will be a mild difficulty. And that one I think was like on the borderline of mild hard until it started going off, and we were like, oh, this could be a full slaughter. And you 100% turned the tides.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
100%.
some of that was a lot of that kind of thing comes down to dice rolls. Like, it was 2 of the 4, especially the one really powerful vampire got turned. I think that was probably the first moment, because like everything else, the revivifies and all of that just happened, but the fact that the turn undead worked, I think, was the super big thing. I in a similar way, once again, Voss getting tricked into thinking that goblin hand was a thing was funny. But then Orkira had a spell that she never had used before prepared. And then when we encountered a whole bunch of undead, was able to call down, sunlight on a whole bunch of undead because Voss had a goblin hand that he was tricked into having.
Oh man, I wish that had followed. Like, I wish that we got to do that ritual. And the moment that got brought up, I remember Rhea's face where it was just like,
oh no, I'm gonna get caught.
oh,
Yep.
oh, this is my foot in my mouth.
But as Lauren was saying, the foot and mouth moment saved the party.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because then you would not have had it memorized.
It also
or not had it, that day.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had it that day at all,
So
because
good.
I literally had prepared it, because it wasn't until later on that we
Yep.
So
so good.
Yeah.
there were a couple of other fights later on that I don't know if it, and this is kind of just the life of a healer, is did the healing make a huge difference as it was? Probably, but what the consequence is that anyone else who had access to healing didn't have to make the choice. Like, Harold has healing, but he didn't have to because he knew I had it covered. Vinley has healing, but I have it covered. Seisha has lay on hands, but I had it covered. Voss has healing potions, but they trusted that I had it covered, and I trusted that they were going to do the other things that needed to happen. The fight we had with the warden to close the portal, I think was one of those moments in where like, all
Mhm.
right, me being able to just heal the warden and keep her alive and going meant that everybody else could deal with the stuff coming out of the portal. And like that, the Vinley had the clutch banishment, and Harold had I don't remember what the spell was, but it turned the thing around and sent it back into the portal. Like those things couldn't have happened if they felt like they had to spend their actions healing.
Mhm.
So it was less, did Orkira save people? No. But it was a team effort. She was able to keep people alive. There was definitely a moment with the warden where I thought
But
I was going to have to start doing was death warding her so that she could survive stuff because I wasn't able to heal fast enough. Like I was
Mm.
starting to go down that road of like, I'm not even going to heal. I'm just going to death ward.
Yeah.
And then we finally, like, that thing came out of the portal. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just death warding her. I guess I'm keeping her death warded until I die. So
Yeah.
yeah, there were those kind of thoughts, but those fights were fun. Those were, yeah. And then every once in a
And
while she
so
gets to
many,
drop a fireball.
yeah. And so many of those moments are, again, I feel like it plays back to that nature that Orkira has, where it's self-sacrificing, serving. And so even by being that healer for the party and allowing Harold, Voss, Finley, all of the party to be their best selves without that, and you
Mhm.
got it covered. Like that's where Kira's best self, that lends them to being their best selves in those moments. And in some way, we're getting close to the end of time here. I'm going to push us a little long tonight because I've got two more questions that I really want to ask.
All right. I'll try to
Um,
keep the answer short.
all right. So Orkira pushed the party in so many good ways, supported the party in so many good ways. You experienced 6 years in a bag with Harold,
Thanks, Todd.
completely changed. Completely changed Harold when he came out of the bag. By the end of that journey with you. And in some ways, during your time with the BFGs, I would argue that Orkira was kind of the northern star for them in terms of guiding them to do good, to do the right thing. Even if it was hard, and I would say tried to push them. Would you agree with that? First
I,
part
I
of the
don't.
question.
I don't think she was the only one. I think she was there. I think she was probably a little naive in the idea of, especially not knowing everything that was going on. But I don't think she was the main. If anything, she wasn't the person guiding people. She was the person from behind being like, "I got you. Let's go. All right. Well, let's do the thing. It'll be okay without toilet paper. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine." It was that kind of thing,
Yeah. I love that. So with that in mind, what does Orkira hope that her friends have learned from her during her time with them?
Oh God, a couple of things. I hope that I'm gonna answer this as Orkira. Oh, if they'll just talk to each other more about the right things, about the things they're supposed to, about the stuff. Like the number of times it was like, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you something, but don't tell anybody else." Why? No, tell everybody. Tell everybody what's going on, please. You have the time, so do it. Yeah. Yeah, so much talking and not enough of the right talking. I think that'd probably be it.
That's good. That's really good.
Communication.
There is so much good communication
So
and so
much.
many good juicy role-playing moments, and then and Orkira's guilty of it too. She's guilty of like not the what she thinks is egregious of this is the thing you need to know in order to be able for us to do the thing we're doing. But yeah, she dances around things as well.
Yeah. So my final question. Last episode you were on with us live. Orkira's asked by the Venrock elders, like, what are you doing here? And why are you helping? And you respond with, I got sent here because of my God, but I do it because of my friends. And that is such a powerful line. what have your friends meant to you on this journey this last year for Orkira?
Jeez. We almost made it before the end without me crying. I talked about this at the beginning, but like, I was afraid of not having a place to play this character. But more than that, I was afraid of not having a place to play with other people as this character. Like, that has been such... And especially coming into D4, because I already knew everybody, because these were already friends of mine, and because I trusted the kind of game that everybody was going to run and play and wanted to participate in. Having that place, especially this past year, especially as a performer and as a professional musician who is not a professional musician anymore, because that's just gone. Like, I've got gigs here and there, but what I do with D&D is my job now. I'm very, very lucky. And the places I get to perform D&D are my performance outlet. That is where my heart and soul is. And having a place to do that every week with people I enjoyed tremendously making music with has literally some weeks been one of the only things I've had to look forward to. And it kept me going in some of the worst times of my life. It was like this game and my partner, and that's it. And yeah.
Well, we've made some beautiful music.
100%.
Yeah, without a doubt. And this past year, I will piggyback off that, and just it would not be the same without you at our table and getting to make art together, because it is art, and getting to weave a story together that impacts others who watch it. And it's one of the main things that I say as a storyteller is to enact a story so immersive that you feel those feelings, that you are in the story. And
episode 130 is a testament to that.
100%.
So.
And it is an honor I can't describe to see how much this character has affected those characters. Like, I forever am grateful to Ethan for what Harold has expressed, because Orkira doesn't get that kind of abject praise from people a lot of the time. Unless it's like, you've just saved my life kind of things. Like, thank you. But like, just out of nowhere, hey, you changed my life.
In a way, arguably, you did save it also. But
yeah.
I mean, and some of that was Ethan making character choices, and some of that is just I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but I'm grateful for it, and Orkira is thankful for it, and it's and to like to be able to help V on her journey with something that was so important to her, and to know that Orkira was a part of that is it's a warmth in my heart that is gonna, it's gonna be there forever.
Yeah.
I can tell you the Bedrocks are gonna tell tales of your story for eons to come.
And hopefully it won't all be about the poop. Yep. Thankfully, Ellerthek Athala was not on the toilet when I scried on him. Because,
if we were a different style of game, he would have been.
If they were a different style of game, they would have done that.
I mean,
that's one of those. Yep.
In D4, it hasn't happened yet, but in future Orkira, she has scried on someone on the toilet, and it happens.
Yep.
It's just a thing.
It's a
I
thing.
love this game so much.
It-
I love these people, and I love that we could have that moment of like I'm teaching Vinley how to do this thing, and we're having this tender moment. And oh, by the way, poop. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be D4 if there wasn't some talk of some bathroom stuff.
A wise man once said, "There's no such thing as
It's a bad bit."
As a bad bit. Everybody poops. Okay, wait. I know we're running late. I will have to say, because I talked a lot about Seisha and we talked a lot about Vinley. I did not get a chance to talk about Harold, hardly nearly as much. The fact that we got to that Orkira got to be a part of the discovery of his parents and that whole thing in town. And like, that was such a fun, weird, amazing series of games for me as Orkira of like, okay, she knows all about this, but it's obvious that what Harold needs right now is V especially. But like the planning of this is how I can help my friend the best, and it's not necessarily to be the person who's going to be there to hug him and to like support him. You know, I'm going to be the person who notices the shit that we need to notice because, you know, like that was such an amazing series of games, and watching Ethan knock it out of the park and then like going through that whole emotional arc and talk about like all the stuff that we've talked about up until this point. Orkira doesn't see as self-sacrifice. She sees as this is what I do for my friends, and my friends do the same. She would balk at the idea if you ever said this is martyrdom, self-sacrifice, any of that. Is no, this is I don't want to hurt myself. I don't like being in pain. I would not, you know, any of that. The one exception is I'm going to go and make people believe that I've killed innocent people in order to really save their lives. That's the one time that she really feels like she did something self-sacrificing, because there are now people out in the world who think that she is a horrible, horrible person. And yeah, those people are also horrible, horrible people, but that's not the point. Yep. And it took Harold and his family for her to do that. So if you ever asked her about self-sacrifice, that's the one thing she'll admit was a sacrifice to do. Everything else, that's just part of being a friend.
Yeah, that was a big choice to be viewed as a monster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially for Orkira.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially for Orkira.
And she has no idea that no one views her that way because of what Voss did. It doesn't matter. Lauren knows that, but Orkira does not. So
Orkira does not.
There we go. So I just had to say that too, because we were talking about moments.
Absolutely.
It was a big moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big moment.
And it was because of how much she cares about Harold and how much that relationship has meant to her. So there you go.
Well, I know that everyone at D4, also the cast who aren't here, would are insanely grateful for the time that they had with you this past year. I know that me listening and watching to the show, I'm better for knowing more about Orkira and watching her interact with the BFGs. So thank you, Lauren Irvin, for joining us for this past year.
Hey, thank her. She's the better person out of the two of us. So I hope to be her one someday, foibles and all.
I know we didn't get to all of the questions, either the ones that Ross came up with or the ones that were submitted. So we want to apologize for that, but we do need to keep this to a somewhat time frame. Otherwise, we'll keep talking about it forever.
Yeah, we'll go and go and go.
We can go for a while.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it is a reasonable hour of the day for me, at least. It is not for the rest of the people. So y'all have stayed up super late.
If I have been yawning a lot, I have worked a 14-hour day today, and I am running on very little sleep.
And it is tomorrow for all of you.
It's tomorrow already.
It is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow.
So thank you. So I'll go into the Discord if anybody had any of those questions. I'm more than happy to answer them in the Discord.
Sounds great.
That sounds wonderful.
Great.
Again,
Thank
we
you so
want to
much.
We want to thank you, Ross, for being the new host for our show, D4&After.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
thank you again, Lauren, for coming along this journey. And a reminder that a goodbye for now is not a goodbye forever.
Yep. And
100%.
please check out session 130. the final farewell of Orkira on D4 for now, because goodbye is not forever. It is available on YouTube and on podcast as we speak.
And hey, if you want to know what Orkira's up to next, I'll be on Idle Champions Presents on Mondays for the next couple of weeks. And Mark Meir is going to be there as Baloth. And if you don't think the two of us are going to try to drop as many D4 references as we can, you're sadly mistaken. Because the two of us love to... What's one thing the two of us love to do? Break the fourth wall. Or Baloth has taught Orkira where the fourth wall is to be broken.
Yep.
So he is 100% the most fourth wall breaking character.
He's Baloth in character has mentioned the fourth wall, and Orkira said, "Oh, I've been looking for that. Where is it?" So you should watch that because I'm definitely gonna. We're going to the Shadowfell, so I think Orkira is gonna be clutching onto that piece of accordion from Harold pretty tightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you also got another gift
man.
from Harold. He sacrificed spell DCs for you.
Yeah. I felt really bad because Lord knows that Orkira can't use that.
No, it was not about giving you an
I
item
know.
to use.
I know, but yeah, she is excited for the day where she gets to give that back and be like, hey, this went on a journey.
And if you want to know what happened to Orkira canonically after she left D4, go listen to
Here's of the Plains.
Here's of the Plains.
Demi-plane.
The planes right there.
And see what happens after.
Can I?
that. Yeah,
Can I
go.
spoil one thing?
This whole thing's a
now
bunch
that
of spoilers.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know. But, we'd have to give everything away. So canonically, Heroes of the Plane start with Orkira on the Plane of Fire, learning how to speak Primordial from a book she got in D4. The reason that she's on the Plane of Fire specifically is so that if she had died in D4, that was how we were going to explain her coming back. Was because that's what the Phoenix does. If you die, you end up just hanging out for a little while, and then eventually the Phoenix goes, "Hey, I need you to go do stuff again. Go." So that was why she's there, and why like a portal opens up and she drops through. So if she had done the ultimate sacrifice, it would have been okay.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually.
So there you go. So when you listen to that, just be glad that she's on the Plane of Fire alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. No spoilers, but there might be a reason why the Phoenix called you to hang out for about an hour, or not an hour, a year, to prep you for things that happen in Heroes of the Plains. But if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it.
Yeah. Mostly to speak Primordial. It just took that long.
Mostly.
That's what the Phoenix tells you.
There's that too. Yeah.
Does it to you?
All right. You all should go to sleep. We should stop this.
Yes.
We should stop. But thank you.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Thank you.
I don't know if we
Thank
have
you,
an actual
Lauren.
outro, but I've just interrupted it.
Well, here, why don't we do the thing that Devin and Dustin always normally do? And thank you everyone for watching again. And be excellent to each other.
May you always roll advantage.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.